Okay, solving trig equations is the topic, and you've already done this, so all we're going to do is add one step to it. Okay, so this is your first equation, and when I look at something like that, it is a formula sheet thing. So sine 2b, so I'm going to go to my formula sheet, and sine of 2 times the angle. You see it? Whoop. What did I just do on that?
Can we do it on the whiteboard, Marcy?
I'm just recording for Ashlyn, that's why I have to do it on my computer. Okay, so did you find that one from your formula sheet?
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm going to replace this with 2 sine b cos b. It's just that my variable is a b, not an a, right? Because that's what I was given. Okay, so the first step is you are trying to replace something we haven't seen before on your formula sheet, okay? Okay, now this is algebra. How am I going to solve this if there's two different things going on? What's your first instinct with equations? Before we factor, there's something that needs to happen. We need one side to be 0. Okay, so before we factor, I like that idea, but we have to have a 0. Okay, so this is factoring. So grade 11, you got your styles. I'll go through them, and you decide which one. Is it difference of squares, GCF, simple trinomial, complex trinomial? GCF. Okay, so what are you going to take out? Everything has a sine b in it. So this first unit, if you divide it by sine b, you get 1. And if you were to divide a sine b out of the second unit, okay, are we good with that? If you feel like you didn't do it right, you can always check. Does it multiply back? That's what you can do, right? Okay, now you want to alternate things being 0. So this sine b equals 0. And this one, do you want me to do it the long way maybe? It might be a little hard to see. I need this to equal 0. So 1 equals 2 cos. Okay. Literally the first step that we did was the only new thing. Everything else, you know how to factor to solve. Now you're at trig equations. So now you go into that angle mode. Okay? My first question would be, is this unit circle stuff or not? What do you think? A 0? Is it a unit circle number? Is a 1/2 a unit circle number? Yeah. Sine is the y. So my question to you is, what angle, where are you if sine is 0? where would you be?
Here or
You would be here or here, right? Okay, I didn't write this down, but what did your question on your paper say? It said the angle has to be that's what the top of your paper says, right? So the angle has to be equal or greater than 0 and less than 360. So what should we answer? 0 degrees, 180 degrees, and does anybody know why I can't write 360? I'm not going to write it. Why? Because it has to be less than, and it's not allowed to be equal on that inequality. So those are two answers. Okay? So what do you think about this value? Is it a unit circle or should we calculate it? It's a unit circle. So where is x? On your unit circle. So are you looking, where is x a half? Did you find those two spots? And then I'm supposed to answer in degrees. Okay, that's it. So I added one step to what you just did in the last unit, okay? Number 2. Okay, this is number 2. Where can we make a replacement with something from our sheet? Can you replace sine squared or can you replace cos? What can you do?
Sine squared.
Sine squared. Can you go to your formula sheet and figure out
Oh, she did that one. I'm surprised.
so I'm going to pick that. Sine, the top one, top right corner, or top left corner. Okay, I picked that, but sine squared theta would be what in that if I rearranged it?
1 minus cos squared.
1 minus cos squared theta. Okay, so I'm going to take this and I'm going to replace it, okay? Except for theta, I'm going to just use the letter that they have. So 2 bracket okay? So I replaced something from my formula sheet. Okay, that's the only new thing that you're learning. Now, what kind of math instincts should we do here? What kind of algebra stuff? We're going to need to do this probably first. Is that going to work? First. So I get 2. Be careful with your signs here. And I often get people who forget to do it on the second. I get people who do this correctly, but the second part, right? You see that? Okay, Kaylee, I think you had the next right idea. What did you say? I need everything on one side to be 0. Okay, Here is something that I always do. I like my squareds to be positive because I hate factoring with negatives. So I would actually like this to go that way because then it's positive. So 0 equals, okay, be careful with signs now. Remember what you're moving. So if I move, this would be positive 2 cos squared. Okay, I left this alone, so it's plus 3 cos t. I didn't move it, so it's just positive and stays. And then the number 2 is getting moved, so make sure your signs are good. Okay? Now what kind of work do you think we're going to have? Does this look like it would factor? Complex? Trinomial? Okay, so if you like, you can do it the long way. I'm going to go 2 cos t and 1 cos t. That's how I get the first unit, right? Okay, now I play around with the numbers. Do you know what you have to have in the last spots? You have to have a 2 and a 1. So where does the 2 go? Where does the 1 go? Play around. Remember that you have to make a 3 in the middle. One of them will be positive and one will be negative. So make sure you FOIL it properly. How did we do? 2 cos squared plus 4 cos minus 1 cos. Right? All my components are there? We good with the foiling? Okay, next would be the trig values. So here cos t equals 1/2. And in this bracket, cos t equals -2. Okay, now I ask myself, do I go to my unit circle or my calculator? So on this one, I can just do this on my unit circle, and I think we just had this one, right? So I'm looking for this spot and this spot. But I think this time it's different, right? Because what do I want my answer to be in? Radians. So what are we at? Pi over 3, right? Is that the answer there? And then the other one is 5 pi over 3. Okay, and then the next one is not on the unit circle, so I could touch my calculator, but there's actually something I just know. Do you remember what would happen with that one?
It's bigger than 1.
It's out of that, so there's going to be no solution, right? And if you did happen to go to your calculator and inversed it, it would have been an error. So that's why. Okay, number 3. Okay, 2 tan squared. Okay, looking at it, the first new step is there anything we can replace? So can you replace tan squared with something or secant with something? What do you think from your formula sheet? Tan squared. Because the squares are the only thing in that corner, right? So that's what you're going to do. So you guys are all looking here. So on your formula sheet, tan squared, that's the line I'm looking at on my formula sheet. But I need just tan squared, so what was that going to be? Secant squared minus 1 would be the replacement. Are we okay with that understanding? You have to make sure it's isolated. Okay, so I'm going to do that replacement. Okay, obviously my variable is a t instead of a theta. Okay, formula sheet replacement. Now, all the algebra you need. So algebra says I better expand this. Okay, now we have noticed that we better have a 0 on one side if we have multiple things going on. So this time, I like this where it is. So that's going to be the move. Okay, so 2 secant squared t, good, stays. That gets moved. So now it's a negative. And that stays. Was this the exact same one, or was it a +2 last time? So 2 secant, oh. Okay, so I'm same idea as last time. 2 secants times 1 secant. And then at the end, I need a 2 times a 1. But where does everything go? Making sure 2 and 1. And that needs to make a 3. Did we make it? Are we okay with that? Does it all work out? Negative 3 in the middle. Okay, so here, secant t equals negative 1/2. Okay? And here, secant t equals positive 2. Okay, now what do we do with secants? We know all this stuff. Secant we don't do in our calculator, we don't know that, so then we change it to a cos, and then we flip. And then we change this also to a cos. Apparently my answers aren't very creative because we're going to be in the same position here. Okay, what is going on with this one, this answer? No solution. Cos can't be a negative 2. That's too much. And look at that. I landed in the same spots on my unit circle. Okay, but this is different on how I'm going to answer it. What does your question say at the top there? for all real values. So what kind of work do you do? Pi over 3. How do you include everything? Plus 2 pi k. There's your 2 answers for that one. Okay, so you see how we're doing all the work we did last unit, but just that first plug-in step would be the new thing. Okay, maybe let's just do a quick reminder about the calculator step. So I don't want to do all this work, I just want to do one thing that reminds you.
Can I ask what T stands for?
It's like an x, theta, t. I can put anything there that I want. It's just a variable. So t is the angle t equals this. That would be like your answer. Okay, just a reminder, how do you answer this? Okay, how do you answer this? Do you remember? Okay, is that a unit circle number, 1/3? No. So I go into Astica. Where are you? Where are you with sign being negative? The bottom. So your angles are got to be there. Now, since you said this is not on your unit circle, you actually have to go to your calculator. In radian mode. So I wanted you to try radian. Do you remember this kind of idea? 0.3398. So that is just the distance, right, off the axis. So what am I going to do to get that actual number there? You remember that one? Pi plus, and I already have it in my calculator, right? So I'm just doing it in my calculator. 3.481 radians. Okay, so you might run into this stuff, right? The ones we had in our examples were all unit circles. So what would I do to get this location? 2 pi minus.